Good evening. Welcome to the Scotts Plains Fanwood Board of Education regular public meeting. Today is December 16th, 2021. Mr. Jones, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bauer, Mrs. Borrell. Here. Ms. Brody, Mrs. Mitchell. Here. Ms. Sirianni. Here. Ms. Williams, Ms. Winkler. Here. Mr. Murray. Here. Dr. Colcott.
Here. Quorum is present. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Please join me in the salute to the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome to the Park students for our presentation tonight. We just came out of executive session, and in executive session, we talked about committee selections for 2022-2023. We discussed the personnel agenda, HIB cases, the suspension and detention report, legal status report, and committee members and officers for next year for the Board of Education. At this time, we have additions to the agenda: 16 BUS, Special Ed Transportation, 17 BUS, Methfessel and Warble PC as a special counsel to the board, 18 BUS, Long Range Facility Plan, 19 BUS, Private Oral Therapy, 20 BUS, Classroom Aid Sidebar Agreement, 21 BUS, High School Drop-Down Schedule with the 6th period, 22 BUS, Demographer Facility Analysis. At this time, Dr. Mass, do you want to do the superintendent's report? Or do you want to move on to our instructional update?
I think we'll skip to the instructional update.
Okay. So then at this time, the Nettingham Middle School Blue Notes will be our featured performance this evening.
Good evening, I'm Mrs. Jenkins from Nettingham Middle School. I'm really short, apparently. And these are the Blue Notes. They are 7th and 8th graders who auditioned to be part of the Blue Notes in addition to the regular chorus classes that they attend during the school day. They rehearse on Thursdays after school for an hour once a week. Here is our first song. You will recognize it, no introduction needed. Our next piece is called Moonlight Sleigh Ride. Are you guys ready for the ride? Yeah. No snow day until after the concert. Thank you. And our last song that we are going to sing is Winter Wonderland. Again, not until after the concert on the 22nd. I'm putting my order in. Okay, so our last one is going to have a beatboxer, Brandon. Oh, yeah, right? Yeah. So we have Brandon, who's going to be beatboxing with us.
Over the ground lies a mantle of white.
live music, and we have our concert next Wednesday, December 22nd, the Palindrome, 12/22/21. So we look forward to having the first live concert since 2019 in the new Nettingham Auditorium. Thank you very much. Let's give it up one more time for Mrs. Spfboe and the Certainly a gift for us on our last board meeting of 2021.
Much looking forward to all of the good things that 2022 will bring, and you have us on a good start. So thank you for the effort to come out tonight. Ms. Jenkins, again, thank you for the effort to bring your blue notes here. It has made our meeting already so wonderful and memorable.
I just wanted to say thank you, and you look so lovely in your concert attire, and you're going to give Pentatonics a run for their money. That was very good. That was a wonderful musical interlude. Okay, Dr. Mass, we're going to go back in time to the superintendent's report, please.
I always wanted to do some time travel. So this evening, I would just first like to talk about the multimedia news regarding threats to schools, and just for the community to know how very seriously we take that. I'd like to ask Jean Cleary just to make a few comments on how we respond under those conditions.
Thank you, Dr. Mast. Yes, we are aware of it, and we have been in touch with the local police department. Our staff is well informed, and we felt it best to just, let the community know that we are aware of it. Everything is being monitored, and we have our standard emergency protocols that we're all drilled and trained on. So we feel confident that with the support of local police and our present protocols that we are safe to be open for school.
Thank you. In addition, we have 5 more days of school before winter break, and it's not that I'm counting the days, but we are certainly managing an increased transmission rate, and that brings a number of challenges. One, it's not only the students who are testing positive or who are needing to be quarantined, but it's also impacting our staff, and then it's creating challenges of coverages, etc. So the system is under stress, but we continue to move forward, and we continue to have instruction in place for students, even under the stress. When students are quarantined, we do have in place instruction that keeps their learning moving forward. And I'd like to ask Dr. McGarry to speak to what we have in place now. The demand is becoming greater, so I would just like to remind the public what we're doing.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Mast. I think it's really important to start by recognizing that our school nurses, since we reopened our schools last November to in-person instruction, have contact traced 6,235 individuals as part of their pandemic work. So no small tasks, to be sure, so we're really grateful for their constant 24/7 efforts to do that. So back in the summer, as we were planning the road back, we met with groups of administrators, teachers, to identify a plan that would work for when students needed to be excluded from school due to COVID exposure. What that yielded, with the support of the Board of Education, are 3 additional teaching positions that have joined our staff and are working tirelessly to embrace and welcome students into what we have affectionately called the Quarantine Academy for our elementary schools. Currently, we have approximately 65 students attending quarantine, but that changes on a daily basis as they welcome students and as they return students back to their classrooms. And really the goal is to maintain the instruction throughout the child's exclusion from school. So they work closely with the classroom teachers at all 5 elementary schools to continue to provide instruction for those students. At the middle school, it takes on a little bit of a different look as we have a remote or a quarantine Google Classroom that students join throughout the day, each period, and are met by a staff member who continues to provide them guidance on how to access their learning tasks and activities. Our staff has really developed quite exquisite expertise in Google Classroom, and so they're using Google Classroom as the tool for keeping kids engaged. And at the high school, where our students take on a little bit more responsibility, they are actually logging on to a teacher's classroom to listen to the audio of the class, and again, using Google Classroom to basically manage all of the learning tasks that are going on in the classroom. We continue to perfect our approach, and as we get feedback from parents and teachers and students themselves, many of whom have enjoyed their time in the Quarantine Academy and have been sad to let go of the teachers that they've gotten to meet there, and we've been really fortunate to have a great staff working with that.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. Additionally, the district has been following the guidelines of the Department of Health, and the number of quarantines has come under those guidelines. I was wondering, Doug, if you could speak to the update on those guidelines that came out today?
Yeah, late last night, thank you, Dr. McGarry. Late last night, the Department of Health issued new guidelines, or I should say revised guidelines for the quarantining of close contacts of COVID cases in schools. The gist of the update is that, as with the prior guidance, vaccinated students do not need to quarantine unless they show symptoms, but for unvaccinated students, the change in the guidelines reduced the amount of time that the unvaccinated students who are deemed close contacts have to be excluded from school. Originally it was 14 days, so 2 full weeks of quarantining. That's down now to 7 days if the student provides a negative COVID test, and 10 days if they do not get tested.
Thank you. That's my report, Dr. Klokowski.
Thank you, Dr. Mass. Next, we have the Business Administrator's Report. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Just a quick update on transportation from last month. Although we have had additional call-outs from our bus company, they have, so I would say it's gotten slightly more difficult since the last meeting. Some good news is we have on this agenda, we are hiring a full-time bus driver, so it should help improve it slightly. And in addition, we were able to lease a bus from our bus company. So we have that on hand. Crossing our fingers that we have some relief there. Second item, just wanted to mention, was our demographer that's on this agenda that we are continuing to look to plan for the increased residential units that are coming online. We've identified 1,000 new units, and we're digging into each one of those developments to understand the impact on the schools in terms of space and also on curriculum and services. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure that the right of the public have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices located at 512 Cedar Street, Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Such notice was provided in written notice and forwarded to the Times, now known as the Union County Hawk, the Star Ledger, the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, and the Borough Clerk of Fanwood, and the revised annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings as adopted September 1, 2021. And now back to instructional updates. The second instructional update is the recognition of the girls' gymnastics team winning season. Mr. Evans, if you would please read the piece from Coach Ryan Miller.
Sure. So unfortunately, Mr. Miller, our Director of Athletics, was unable to attend tonight, but he did provide a statement. We're excited to be part of watching the growth and development of this very talented team. This year is our third consecutive county championship and our first sectional title since the 90s. And while this team's success is documented, their cohesiveness and camaraderie deserve even more recognition. They cheered for each other, motivated those who did not score as well as they would have liked, picked each other up, literally, when they fell, and represented the very best qualities of student athletics. Coaches Marissa and Tara, in 2 short years, have created a true team environment, one of nurturing and support filled with compassion for their teammate and opponent. For the second straight year, we hosted independent gymnastics, who became an extension of our program's values. The coaches from Plainfield, who led the 2 independent gymnastics, consistently commended the esprit de corps that Raider Gymnastics represents. We are proud of this program, not just for their competitive success, but for their ability as a team to be the best representative of our community.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. I'll read the resolution. Whereas the 2021 varsity gymnastics team had one of the most remarkable seasons in the history of gymnastics at Scotch Plains Fanwood High School. And whereas the team placed 6th overall in team gymnastics state championships held at Brick Memorial High School on November 11th. And whereas the team traveled to St. Thomas Aquinas High School for the North 2 Sectional Championship meet on November 6th and earned the first North 2 sectional title since 1993, outpacing Westfield by a score of 108.775 to 108.375. And whereas on October 21st, the Raiders hosted the Union County Gymnastics Championships for the 2nd straight year, and they won their 3rd consecutive county championship by setting a school record with a team score of 110.05. And whereas the 2021 gymnastics team was comprised of the following athletes: Ella Borgio, grade 10. Taylor Clement, grade 10. Shaylin Farley, grade 11. Ava Fazio, grade 11. Andy Ferguson, grade 9. Lauren Fitzgerald, grade 10. Jessica Gallagher, grade 11. Jessica Glander, grade 11. Sophia Hedda, grade 9. Mary Catherine Huffman, grade 9. Erin Kennedy, grade 10. Ava Leonetti, grade 11. Kelsey Lubalin, grade 10. Kayla Morrow, grade 12. Eva Pereira, grade 10. Jordana Reesberg, grade 11. Ashley Sikia, grade 10. Heather Sherman, grade 10. Sarah Sicoli, grade 10. Tamara Singletary, grade 12. And whereas the varsity gymnastics team exhibited outstanding talent, dedication, and teamwork throughout the season and was led by Coach Marissa DeBella and assistant coach Tara Bozatarnik. The team was received and well-deserved recognition from fellow staff, students, and the Scotch Plains family communities for their outstanding efforts and accomplishments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education recognizes and congratulates the 2021 varsity gymnastics team and their coaches, Marissa DeBella and Tara Bozatarnik, for their outstanding achievements and wishes them continued success in all future endeavors. Congratulations. So I've read the motion. Can I have support for this motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Any comments? No other comments? Well, congratulations, it is outstanding, and I wish the students could be here, and I wish Coach could be here tonight, but something kept them from being here, but I'm glad we could recognize them nonetheless.
I've heard that gymnastics has kept them from being here.
Oh, what a coincidence. Doing what they do best.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mast. We honor them nonetheless. Okay, so after instructional updates, it brings us to our public comment portion. In accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education's Public School Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments. There's a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. Speakers, please come down to the podium, speak slowly and clearly, state your full name and the town in which you reside. Please note that the board members cannot respond regarding concerns of individual students or staff members, and such matters should be addressed with the superintendent's office. So if anybody would like to make a public comment, please come down to the podium at this time.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Julio Gomez. I live in Scotch Plains on Cooper Road. I am here to bring some information to the board's attention regarding the exclusion of students who are close contacts. I am the father of 2 children, twins, boy and a girl, David and Olivia Gomez, who are sophomores at the high school. My children recovered from COVID last year. They possess natural immunity, been confirmed by an antibody test. They are not vaccinated. We have chosen not to vaccinate them because based on the prevailing science, natural immunity is superior to vaccine-induced immunity. If you vaccinate a person who has recovered from COVID, you are actually likely to, based on science, reduce the comprehensiveness of their immunity. A person who has recovered from COVID, based on science, runs the risk of suffering more adverse effects from vaccination if you've recovered from COVID. I have experts who've testified in cases who can verify those facts. Now, my concern here is with the exclusion of students who have recovered from COVID and have natural immunity. Those students have been subject to exclusions that are between 7 and 14 days. With respect to my children, they have both been excluded twice. My daughter was excluded for 14 days a few months ago. At one other time, both my children were excluded at the same time for over 7 days. Just recently, my son right now is under exclusion until either tomorrow or Monday, depending on when I get back the PCR test result that he needs to come back to school. In all instances of their exclusion, they've never had any symptoms. They've always produced negative test results, and that's consistent with their natural immunity. I'm curious whether the data that the board is keeping would prove that unvaccinated, recovered students who have been excluded by this district have never shown a positive test and have never shown any symptoms. I don't have that data, you do. But what I wanted to explain to you, and I'll try to be brief since I've gone over my time, although I don't know that anyone else is here tonight to speak, is this. This is the experience of the family when this happens. And the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is because I think that there is room and there is legal flexibility for the board to do something different for unvaccinated children who have recovered from COVID and according to the prevailing science have superior immunity to all the children who are vaccinated. If the children who are vaccinated are not being excluded, the children who have recovered from COVID and have natural superior immunity should not be excluded from school when they are a close contact. The parent receives a phone call from the nurse after the child has been pulled out of their classroom. And then the parent is told only the date of the alleged close contact. The parent is not told who the close contact was. The parent is not told where the close contact occurred. So we don't know if it occurred in school, outside of school, in a classroom, in the playground. We have no idea. We have no idea the length of time of the close contact that's alleged. We have absolutely no information to either confirm the alleged close contact or to guard against it happening in the future, if it is possible. So as a parent, we have no idea. All we can do is accept the word of the school official that there was in fact a close contact, and people can be mistaken about close contacts, people can be incorrect about close contacts, but there's no way for a parent to verify that information because we are deprived from it. I know because I've asked for it on the many occasions that my children were excluded. So with that information, we are sent home. Our children are sent home. And yes, there is, as we've stated here today, there is instruction. But that instruction is nowhere near what instruction would be in person. Sometimes it's only by audio because you're not doing full-blown remote learning anymore. So if something gets put on the blackboard, it's not visibly seen by my child who's only listening to the audio. So arrangements have to be made to make up for that. The other thing is that my kids during the period of exclusion can't participate in any extracurricular activities. Now, I'm very proud of my children for the hard work that they put in, and they do participate in chorus, they participate in the school musical, they participate in the Model UN. My daughter's supposed to go to Hershey in January. If she gets excluded and she has no symptoms and can produce a negative test, she will not be able to attend Model UN. So all the work she done will be for naught. My daughter got cast as the lead in the high school musical this year, scheduled for March. If my daughter is excluded because a vaccinated child tested positive and my daughter has no symptoms and can produce a negative test result every single day if we wanted to, she will be excluded from the school musical, either for 7 or 14 days, depending on when that close contact allegedly occurred. My children are in fear and anxious coming to school, especially now, because they can't control their exclusion. They come to school wondering, is someone who's vaccinated going to test positive and force me out of the classroom? That's their concern, that's their fear. So I bring that to you so that you can understand what we are experiencing.
Mr. Gomez.
I have been
sir,
in touch, yes.
I understand. Because there's not exactly a long line, I have let you go several minutes past the time.
I
but
appreciate
as you can understand, we do have to try to keep to the time limits for sake of other meetings. So again, we do have another public comment period, and certainly if you feel that there's additional statements that need to be made, you can send an email to the board, and I understand that Dr. Mast has reached out to speak to you as well.
I am going to do that, yes. I reached out to Dr. Mast to schedule an appointment, so I'll wait for your availability. I know you're busy. I just want to let you all know what's happening. I'm going to try to work with Dr. Mast to figure a solution. I think that a different policy can be made for recovered children, and we'll all get through this as best we can.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I appreciate you coming out again tonight. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to make a public comment? Seeing no one, then we're going to move on to the committee reports. Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Dr. Kulkowski. I have one facilities report, and I'm covering for finance and community relations as well, so bear with me, please. So Facilities Committee met on the 6th of December. There were 4 items up for approval, one being to amend the long-range facility plan to incorporate items like expansion and drainage. There was a request for approval for updates to the building's alarms. There was a request for approval for disposal of books at Brenner and Terrell's Library. And there was a request for approval to adjust the 5-year vehicle plan, which was previously approved. The committee was in support of each and every one of those requests. There was also discussion around the district-wide lead water testing was scheduled to begin this Saturday, I believe. The high school HVAC pump project has been completed. Let's see. The Ida hurricane claims are progressing, and renovation plans are in the process. concrete work that was previously approved may have to wait for the spring, just due to existing weather conditions. Air quality quarterly testing report was received and is being reviewed and will be shared once it's been looked at. And I think that concludes that report. I'll take any questions.
I'd just like to correct one thing, is that that the air quality report has now been posted onto the website, so it's been made public.
Thank you. I will now move to the Finance Committee report. Some of these updates are similar to facilities. They do follow each other. The date of that meeting was the same, was the 6th of December. I already mentioned the long-range facility planning update. Food service update. Looks like the high school is back to business as usual, and continue to evaluate rolling out additional options at the other schools. And there was discussion around a potential referendum, but we are definitely waiting for some additional information from a demography report, capacity study, and so on. I believe that was all that we talked about with regards to finance. Anybody questions on that?
I don't see any.
If none, I can move over to the final report. Was from the Community Relations Committee that met on the 8th of December. They discussed the results of the strategic planning meeting with regards to Goal 3, community partnership and communications. They went over the objectives that were communicated during the meeting. The goal was to set up measurable results achievable not only this year, but in the years of the strategic plan. They're looking to have some additional follow-up in their meeting in February. And that was all that was discussed in that report. If there's questions, I don't know that I will be able to answer them, but the committee members, all 3 committee members are not here this evening either.
I'm here.
But, oh, sorry.
I just meant I can answer questions.
So, that concludes the reports I am covering as well.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Are there any other committee reports to be heard this evening? Stephanie, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the Curriculum Committee met on December 7th. The first thing that we discussed was a potential for a Social Justice Academy pathway program. The assistant principal at the high school, Brooke Esposito, came and spoke about the potential development of a Social Justice Academy at the high school, which would serve a dual purpose, of first recruiting a diverse future teacher workforce, which we have been working on for a long time, and also offering dual enrollment of college credit at the high school, which has also been requested for quite a while. Brooke sits on the equity team of the New Jersey Network of Superintendents and presented data that the group reviewed that demonstrates that students of color taught by at least one teacher of color have better outcomes in terms of test scores, increased graduation rates, and going to college. So the program, which is a Grow Your Own Teacher program, has been modeled in other districts and has been shown to help students envision a future in education, provide training and experiences, provide support in their college pathway process, and ultimately encourages those students to return to teach where they learned. So this academy would be an honors program. It would comprise a small cohort of students, about 15 students, who would then take certain core courses through a social justice lens. They would have access to speakers and presentations. They would have a summer session prior to the school year for preparation. They would then have student teaching experiences, paid positions in the district during summer, as well as after-school programs, and attend college tours as sophomores. So again, this is just in its inception stage. Possible next steps for rolling out potentially for 2022-23 would include holding focus groups, reviewing the financial implications and grant options, selecting a college partnership for the dual enrollment, selecting staff, designing summer sessions, encouraging participation, curriculum setting, and developing opportunities for jobs. So there's a lot of work to be done, but it's a potential, very exciting potential program for the future. We also discussed proposed course modifications and additional course proposals for ITE. The science supervisor, Gita Faria, and teacher Matthew Fleck came to discuss changes to existing technology and design courses. And these are on the agenda for tonight. Classes that were formerly CAD 1 and 4 have been modified to be more descriptive in their titles and more accurate for what the students are actually learning. So CAD 1 is now drafting and design. It's an introductory course in the methods for visually communicating design. And it introduces students to CAD software. And architectural design was CAD 4, and students will learn aspects of residential architecture drafting and the production of floor plans, elevations, and sectionals. Okay, and then, so those are course modifications. There are 2 new courses that we're being asked to approve tonight. Those are engineering technology, and that's an introductory course intended to introduce students to mechanical and electrical engineering. And then the second class that we are being asked to approve is robotics, which is a follow-up course, and it uses a hands-on approach to introduce the basic concepts of robotics, focusing on the construction and programming of electronic devices and autonomous mobile robots. And students will be introduced to basic programming, prototyping, and problem-solving strategies, working individually, working in teams to build, program, test, improve, and document their progress. Okay. And the third item that we talked about at our meeting are 2, and also on the agenda tonight for approval, are 2 new special education courses. The first is Supplemental Reading Comprehension 1 and 2, which is based on the specific needs of certain students in their IEPs who require strategic reading comprehension support and interventions. The class will be taught by a special education ELA teacher involving small group reading instruction to a very specific population of students, again, based on their IEP needs. The second course is Supplemental Reading Decoding, and it is another special education course designed for students requiring a program that directly focuses on reading, decoding, and encoding strategies. Again, taught by a special education ELA teacher, providing small group reading intervention based on IEP needs. So the needs for these courses potentially might be an additional teacher, again, depending on students' IEP needs and existing special education teacher schedules next year. That is to be determined, and there would be more professional development needed for teaching the decoding class. And those are on the agenda tonight for approval, and we meet again January 11th. That's my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Soriani. Are there any questions for Mrs. Soriani? No. Okay, thank you. Is there any other committee reports to be heard this evening? Okay, well, might have some strategic planning information. I know it's not a committee report, but, our 3 strategic planning nights were very well attended. We shared many great ideas, and the goals are being worked on at this time. And the information that we finally come up with will be rolled out in February at our Board of Education meeting. So we'll be able to have our new goals at that time. And if there's no other committee reports, we'll move on to letters to the board. There were 8 letters and emails that were received from the public, and the appropriate administrator has responded. Board motions, the curriculum report, Dr. Mast.
1C is the out-of-district placements and changes in out-of-district placements as listed. 2C is the approval of the HIB cases from November 18th as listed. 3C is the biannual report of gifts to district schools submitted by Evergreen and McGinn. 4C is the early childhood program grant, the approval of the submission of that 5-year program. And 5C is the courses that Mrs. Sirianni just discussed, to approve those for the program of study.
Okay, we've had 5 motions. Does anybody want to make that motion for the 5 pieces that Dr. Massa just listed?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Soriani. Any questions or discussions on those 5 for Dr. Massa? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Personnel report, Dr. Mast.
Okay, 1 is the personnel report as discussed in exec as it relates to retirements, resignations, terminations, and appointments, etc.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler.
Second, Bora.
Thank you, Mrs. Bohr. Are there any questions or discussions on the personnel report? Seeing none, Mr. Jones, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Winkler,
Yes.
Ms. Boroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Sirianni,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Dr. Kolakowski.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Mast. Thank you, Mr. Jones. And Mr. Jones, when you're ready, will you please do the business report?
Yep. 1 is staff training, very typical. Number 2 is non-public state aid we receive and the allocation to the schools. Number 3 is for related services for special education. 4, 5, and 6 are purchases related to our lease purchase agreement for iPads. Number 7 is a co-op that we use to reduce our costs for energy. Number 8 is a closeout of the project, the high school HVAC project. Number 9 is expenses related to DynTech, who does our infrastructure for our telephones. 10 is disposal of books. 11 is a professional service for insurance, historical insurance research. Number 12 is fire drills. 13 and 14 will not be approved tonight. 15 is paying our bills. 16 is an allocation of our excess extraordinary aid for out-of-district student transportation. 17 is an attorney for litigation. Number 18 is the long-range facility plan new projects, clarification of new projects. Number 19 is related services, special education. Number 20 and 21 are sidebar agreements with the union, education association. And number 22 is for the facility, demographer facility analysis.
Okay, Mr. Jones has just put up 22 items, less the number 13 and 14, which are being shifted to January 20th meeting. So does anybody have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there a second?
Second, Mitchell.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Is there any question or discussion on any of the 20 items that were discussed by Mr. Jones? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right, that brings us to board policies. Do we have any policies?
Not at
No.
this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Any new board business? Seeing none. Other board business. 1 OBB liaison reports. Do we have any liaison reports? Mrs. Soriani.
Yeah, I'll briefly just describe our last Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation meeting that took place on December 1st. I think I've described before that we are kind of broken down into subcommittees based on the listening tour that took place over a year ago now. And we are split into some subgroups that meet around community arts, education, racial healing circles, and policing. So each subcommittee gave an update. There was a community arts event that was held, a hip-hop dance event that for kids. The next racial healing circles are going to be, well, one has passed in December already, and there's one scheduled for January 7th. Actually, that's a racial healing circle facilitator training, and the next racial healing circle, it's tonight?
Yeah, I think there's one.
Tonight, and then at the MLK Day of Service next month at the JCC, it's going to be one of the in-person or virtual events. We'll have to find out.
I think that one's planned to be in person. I'm not positive, but
So
I think that's in
look out for the schedule for MLK Day, and whoever wants to participate in that racial healing circle, can look out for that and is able to do that. And then 118 on the National Day of Racial Healing at Shady Rest. We also talked about the event that took place in October regarding community and police integration. It was the Police and Pumpkins event, which was very well attended. And as far as the education subcommittee, we talked about how we completed this strategic plan, the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which will be part of the plan moving forward. And in addition, talked about continuing to meet in 2022 and goals that are set for next year, which we'll continue to talk about in terms of a critical assessment of the SPF community and racial and ethnographic research of our community, such as Kramer Manor, Shady Rest, Jerseyland, and various ethnic and racial communities that exist in Scotch Plains, Fanwood, and that will be in 2022 for the upcoming year.
Thank you, Mrs. Soriani. Are there any other liaison reports? Mrs. Bora?
Just not that much to report out from the New Jersey School Boards Association held our annual, well, their quarterly meeting. They just, two things. One reiterated what was already sort of stated to us, that the National School Board Association had sent a letter to President Biden regarding board meetings and character behavior, and they wanted to reiterate that the New Jersey school boards had never it was sent without their knowledge or input or approval, so that was just for our knowledge. As well as they are, as we are doing the framework for the future and their new upcoming strategic plan. And that is all on the New Jersey School Board. Unless I missed something, I don't think, Karen, I think you were there also, but I don't think I missed anything. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Bora. Mrs. Mitchell?
I watched one of the New Jersey School Board Association's virtual workshops. And one that was interesting that maybe hasn't had a lot of airtime lately that I've heard was about climate change. So the title was Learn, Grow, Repeat, How to Integrate Climate Change into the Curriculum. It was presented by Karen McCabe from Mountain Lakes. And she went into how the New Jersey Department of Education is starting to have new climate standards for the 9 areas. And for various, there was various integration into those different areas. School ideas that Dr. McCabe talked about was tree planting at our schools, and I know Nettingham has done that in the past, possibly other schools as well, but I just know of that one. She talked about a biology teacher who went on the roof and picked seedlings out of gutters. I don't recommend anybody go on a roof. It was just an idea presented at the meeting. Fundraisers to donate money to East Africa to help their farming. Dr. McCabe also talked about 250 trees planted in Mountain Lake School District and a compost program in Jersey City. Suggestions on how the Board of Ed can help were summarized as support, synchronize, and share. So support by providing resources, training, and time to our administration and staff. Synchronize by sharing goals, cost savings, and efficiencies. And share by communicating these efforts with the community. And I know there's plenty of research about happiness, the perception of happiness increases with charitable giving, and I would put this into that category as well, giving back to the earth. And I think it furthers a conversation about good air quality that facilities introduced earlier. So that is New Jersey School Board Association virtual workshop.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Mrs. Winkler.
So I have 3 reports.
Okay.
The Shared Services Committee met on November 23rd. We had an update from Scotch Plains that they now have a downtown redevelopment plan. They're looking at timelines, plans, and projects, waiting on the state library redevelopment grants. They're going to be combining the library with the town hall offices. And the downtown will be rezoned to accommodate additional housing. The Stuffy's property was sold. The Lidl supermarket will be opening there, a grocery store, and there will be additional space for a commuter parking lot. Then there was some discussion, and now it's after the fact, but there was some discussion about Small Business Saturday, Cocoa with a Cop, the menorah lighting and the gelt drop, and December 5th's holiday celebration with Cocoa visits with Santa and the petting zoo. Then we had a Fanwood update. The new Soho apartments across from the post office will have 49 market rate units and 9 affordable units with retail space below. They're going to break ground in the first quarter of 2022. Additionally, the former site where the Il Sogno restaurant was on South Avenue is going to be redeveloped with 23 market rate units and 5 affordable units and retail space below. And there was a concept plan that was already submitted for Carano Square. I'm not even sure where that is. And then also discussion about Small Business Saturday and ribbon cutting for opening Duke's Pet Den in Fanwood, as well as Fanwood's holiday celebration that was also on December 5th with visits with Santa, the tree lighting, and refreshments. We noted that these housing projects going on around Scotch Plains and Fanwood, all the new housing units will have impact on the schools, space limitations and traffic concerns and things like that, and it was decided that we would add this to the agenda for a January meeting and discuss it at that time. Christopher Jones, our VA, was at the meeting, and he gave an update on where we are looking at possibly calling for a new referendum. But we are waiting on reports, stormwater control assessment, demographic study, classroom capacity analysis, facility maintenance reports, and things like that before we move forward with anything like that. There was a police update. Chief Conley said that he had reached out to PSE&G regarding putting some sort of a walking and biking path under the power lines that cut through from like down past Terrell all the way up to Route 22. He said he has not had any luck getting responses from them. Colleen Marr noted that she had also reached out to them about similar things in the past and also had not gotten any responses from them. He mentioned that the construction over at the Lidl site, when the grocery is there, and the park and ride, that they're going to plan on having the buses come around through Mountain Avenue to pick up and then head back out onto 22. He mentioned that the Jade Isle site on Terrell Road is going to become a quick check. He said that the Cops and Kids programs at Terrell and at Nettingham went really well this year. They were held in November on the 12th and the 19th. He said the program is growing. There were over 70 kids participating at each one of these. He said that they are additionally planning to do them in March at each of the middle schools, I think on the 11th and the 18th, and that perhaps they'd look into adding more dates as well. He wanted to specify that this program isn't meant to just be athletic activities with the kids, that it's really meant for any kid to take part in, that they have lots of different games that are just a lot of fun to play, and you don't necessarily need to be an athlete to do it. He mentioned that he was disappointed the Faith in Blue event had to be canceled due to rain. There was no rain date. He's looking forward to next year's event, and they're looking at possibly planning a weekend of activities instead of just a day. He did mention the hip-hop dance-off event with the police. He actually DJ'd the event, and another officer from Scotch Plains participated. He said that the COVID and flu vaccine clinics have been really well attended, about 250 appointments at each, with walk-ins accepted as well. And the Fanwood Police Director, Michael Bramhall, reported he had attended the Raiders Don't Risk It event and found it to be really powerful. At our last meeting, Dan Mason from New Jersey Professional Group, I can't even remember what they're called because I never refer to them. Dan Mason is JPM. He's the guy who convenes the shared services for us, and he announced that he will be retiring at the end of this calendar year. So at our meeting, he kind of reminded us that this was going to be his last meeting with us. It's kind of significant because he was the person who convened shared services back in the beginning in 2000, and he's been sort of checking in, overseeing it ever since. We did have someone else who was involved in it for about 10 years with us, but Dan always kept his finger on the pulse of what was happening here, and so it's kind of a big deal that he's retiring. Our next meeting will be January 20th. So that's the shared services report. I also have a report from Union County School Boards Association. There was a meeting last night. Among the things that came up that I would like to share with everyone, there was several of the people who spoke mentioned workshop 2021 from October. The sessions are all available through December 28th, so if you missed them back in October and you didn't have a chance to catch up, maybe over the break you'll have some time. You can sit down and watch any sessions that you may have missed. January and February meetings for New Jersey School Boards Association are going to all be virtual. It was a decision that they made over the summer. It's not about COVID being on the rise as it is now. That just happens to coincide with that. But they found that having meetings in the wintertime with having to cancel for bad weather conditions becomes very difficult to reschedule these meetings. And so they have, after being virtual, because we had to be virtual, they're like, oh, we can actually do this and it works. And so rather than having to have meetings and possibly cancel them for January and February, all the meetings will be virtual.
And Amy, I just want to add that I was at that meeting virtually, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, it worked out nicely, didn't it? And what else? Larry Feinsod mentioned also, particularly I wanted to note this, that they're on their website, they have a book that they had published called Fundamentals of School Board Membership. It is available as a PDF at the School Boards Association website, and it's an excellent resource. What else?
I have something to add to that, Amy.
Sure.
So 3 of our very own board members were recognized at last night's meeting. One, Nancy Bauer, was recognized for a milestone and certification. They had her down for 10 years, but she corrected them. It's 14 years. And Karen Kolakowski was recognized as a certified board member, and they discussed the training that accompanies that. And Amy Winkler was recognized as a master board member. So tremendous assets on our Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Mass.
Thank you. So the crux of the meeting was data-informed decision-making, and there was a presentation from Dr. Rubin and Dr. Heineman from Cranford, the superintendent and assistant superintendent there. It was, let's see, they talked about, I'll boil this down to formulate a goal, identify limitations, create supporting structures, and then take the outcomes and work from there. Look out for sample sizes for your data being too small. Know that correlation is not necessarily causation. Make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. And don't forget that it's people that we're talking about all this data. While the numbers are great to crunch, it's really people. The other thing that happened at the meeting I would mention is the legislative update. Right now they're in the lame duck session until about mid-January. Nick Scutari is going to be taking over as the new Senate president. And he was a former school board member, so perhaps that will be to our advantage. Perhaps not, it's hard to know. There is a bill moving its way through our legislative branches, learning loss, A 5126, S 3214. And this would task the Commissioner of Education with preparing 2 reports on the impact of COVID on public schooling. The first report would be a learning loss report that identifies and quantifies the impact of COVID. And this second report would focus on the continuation of school services during the public health emergency. Then there's a bill mentoring of teachers of color, A 4595 or S 2829, that would establish a 3-year male teachers of color mentorship pilot program. There is a bill teacher workforce data, that's S 2835, A 5292. Which is trying to address teacher shortages. It would require the compilation of data and the issuance of annual reports on the New Jersey teacher workforce. There's a bill evaluating teacher prep programs, A 5291, S 2830, that requires educator preparation programs to annually report to the Department of Education on the first time and overall test pass rates of candidates for instructional certificates. The COVID assistance reporting, A 59999, which requires the Department of Education to annually report to the governor and legislature the amount of federal aid related to COVID relief that it receives and distributes to districts, as well as the purposes for which these funds are used. There is the alternate basic skills testing for CTEs, A6000 S4074, that eliminates the requirement to pass a basic skills test to become a career and technical educator. There is the NJ CUSAC postponement bill, A6001, that provides for postponement of CUSAC due to COVID at this time. There's the AAPI instruction bill, A6100 S4021, that requires districts to provide instruction on history and contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. There is a FAFSA pilot program, S1229, that establishes a pilot program where schools would be teaching students about applying for financial aid for colleges, the FAFSA. There is school security drills bill, A5727, that aims to ensure students' well-being during school security drills. Must be, okay, that's not a complete sentence, but basically that it's to ensure that students' mental health is addressed with school security drills, that they're not terrified in the middle of a drill, but that they do understand what the process is about. so that if there is an actual emergency, they know what to do. There is the healthcare and unfunded mandates, A6217. There are a lot of concerns about this particular bill. It has the potential to significantly increase costs for New Jersey's local taxpayers. It would effectively grant the legislature unfettered authority to enact laws that alter the health care plans public employers offer to their employees without any consideration of the cost impact resulting from these changes. It would also restrict the ability of local governing bodies, including boards of education, to challenge those laws as unfunded mandates before the Council on Local Mandates. So there's some concern about this, and I'll send you all a link to more information about it. But the New Jersey School Boards Association is joined by the New Jersey State League of Municipalities, the New Jersey Association of Counties, and the New Jersey Association of School Business Officials in their opposition to this bill. So I will send you some more information about that. And then briefly, I will talk about the Garden State Coalition of Schools meeting that was on the 15th. Because I know Nancy wanted to report on it, but she's not here this evening. I know I saw her at that meeting, though. The Garden State Coalition of Schools hosted John Mooney from New Jersey Spotlight, who came in and gave us a brief update on what he was seeing happening at the State House. He said there may be changes coming on quarantine rules, which we just discussed. They did come. Hospitalization numbers are double what they were 2 weeks ago, but the hospitalization number tends to lag behind the positive case numbers, so we may be seeing that go up even higher. He said the COVID money and how to spend it, mental health, how to best spend the money, and accountability is something that they're looking at. That Steve Sweeney's exit from the Senate will affect a lot of things. He was a strong leader on educational issues in different ways. That he's heard rumors he's going to be running for governor in 2024. He said about the testing and the Start Strong scores, he was wondering if anybody in the room found them useful. And there was some discussion about the 11th grade test. He said that Teresa Ruiz is moving from being the education chair to the Senate Majority Leader, so that'll have some impacts. There's a focus on learning loss measurements. He said that Murphy's second term, right now everybody's looking at affordability as being the major concern that they're looking at, and it's very bipartisan sort of way. And then he kind of opened up the floor to the members of the coalition and wanted to know what are our concerns. Like if we could just talk directly to our legislators in Trenton, what would we tell them? And that was, of course, like opening Pandora's box. So there was a lot of discussion about the quarantines. There was discussion about shortages, staff shortages, bus driver shortages, classroom coverage. You know, these issues, they affect us, but they also affect all the districts around the state. Everyone's in the same boat. If we could ask for mandates, what would we ask for? Some people said, allow us to go virtual if necessary. And they weren't talking about concerns about COVID. They were concerned about staff shortages. If we don't have certified staff in a classroom, you know, what do we do? If we can't get bus drivers to get the kids to and from schools, like how are we doing this? And they want the ability to go virtual if necessary. You know, some districts expressed a desire to ask the governor to keep the mask mandate in place. Other people talked about testing to stay in school. If we could just regularly test students like we're testing our unvaccinated teachers. There was a push from people in the group to drop the Ed TPA. and dropped the underhood test for bus drivers. The bus driver is, if the bus breaks down, the bus driver's not getting out and lifting the hood to see what's wrong. If they've got a busload full of students, they're not leaving the students to check under the hood anyway. They talked about the shortage of beds in psychiatric institutions because so many mental health issues. They talked about CDL drivers, that there's competition for bus drivers with companies like Amazon and other delivery sites. TCNJ is no longer graduating the same number of teachers that they used to. There's probably just 4 STEM teachers this year that will graduate from TCNJ, that there's teacher shortages everywhere. Talked about the mistaken impression that a lot of people seem to have about school districts being awash in money from state and federal funding for COVID, and that we should be able to do all sorts of things with all the money that we have, and yet we still have staffing shortages, busing shortages, even when there's bus drivers. If a bus breaks down, the parts are backed up, there's no way to order parts. That the inflation rate is crushing our budgets. Equipment isn't available, even when we want to purchase it, we can't. It was just a lot. I don't think he was quite prepared for what he got dumped on him when he asked for, what are your concerns at this time? And if you could talk to your legislators, what would you want to say? So it was an interesting meeting. It was pretty intense. And that concludes the reports I have.
Well, thank you, Amy, for all of those reports. Very informative. So there are no other reports at this time. Oh, Mrs. Mitchell.
I just had a quick addition to the Union County School Board Association meeting about the data. One thing I thought was very impressive about Dr. Hyman's presentation is the balance. At the end of the presentation, you talked about the limitations of data, which Amy spoke to. So I appreciated his presentation of both sides. I have the slides if anybody would like to see them. And other 2 things that I thought was very important about data is that data can be used to address the whole child, not just standardized testing or academics, but behavior, discipline, and social emotional learning. So just as a reminder that, and certainly with presentations that I've seen as my time as a board member, the presentations here are absolutely evidence-based. So what he presented, I was proud to know that Scotch Plains is doing the same with their curriculum and projects as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. And yes, you were there virtually, as was Mrs. Bauer.
Yes.
And then Mrs. Winkler, myself, and Dr. Mass were all there in person. So we did see you on the screen there. You missed a good one. It was very nice in person, and the Union County meetings are well attended and very informative. Okay, well, thank you for all of those reports. 2OBB, requests to attend workshops or workshop reports. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We need to make a motion for November 11th, the open agenda executive session, and the open agenda public session for November 11th. November 18th, the regular public meeting executive session, and the November 18th public meeting. Is anybody going to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there a second?
Second, Winkler.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Are there any questions or discussions about these sets of minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. And that brings us to the second and final public comment portion. In accordance with Scotch Plains Fanwood Public School Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments, maximum 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. Speakers, please speak slowly and clearly and state your full name and the town in which you reside when you come to the podium here. Please note that board members cannot respond regarding concerns of individual students or staff members. Such matters should be addressed with the superintendent's office. If anybody would like to make a public comment, please come down to the podium at this time. Seeing no one, We have some upcoming meetings, because this is the last one for 2021. January 6th is the annual organizational meeting, which will be held in the administration building, which will start at 7:30 PM. There is no executive session. We go right into public. And then January 20th will be our regular public meeting, and here in the high school auditorium, executive session would be at 7:30, I believe, and then 8 o'clock for the public portion. Are there any remarks for the good of the order?
I have one.
Mrs. Borrell?
Well, first of all, happy holidays, everyone, and a happy new year to everyone.
Thank you.
I was really excited and fortunate to attend the first CPAG meeting, November 23rd. And for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to list or mention the description of what CPAG is for you. Is a New Jersey state-mandated, parent-driven group charged with providing input to the district on various system-level issues in special education and related services. Parents meet regularly to discuss concerns and recommendations aimed at benefiting students who have had disabilities and specialized needs. CPAG has monthly meetings for everyone out there. So the next meeting that they will have is December 20th, and this is a great way for parents to come together to discuss not their specific students necessarily, but to go over the input that they have from various, as it relates to their students and procedures and processes. Mrs. Rabimbis and Dr. Mass both joined me at this meeting, and we're very excited to be initiating a partnership with CPAG to learn some more ourselves as well. One thing I should mention that's important for the public as well and exciting for us is CPAG has initiated a new, I want to say protocol, but they will have PTA liaisons for each school to help with communications that we can have feedback from each individual school going forward. And we're looking forward to working together and helping provide parents with resources within the community and among each other. I'm not sure if I missed anything, but I was really excited about that, and I hope that if anybody needs more information on that, to contact and reach out to the office. But that meeting for CPAG will be this Monday evening via Zoom.
Thank you, Mrs. Boer. Any other remarks for the good of the order? Mrs. Mitchell?
Just another friendly reminder that at drop-off, to use the crosswalks. There is 2 incidences this week driving on Westfield Road with students so eager to come and learn that just cross the street in front of the cars. They were safe, but could be safer at the crosswalk. So a friendly reminder, and also a reminder over the holidays, enjoy your family and be safe so we can all have a very smooth January. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Mrs. Winkler?
So I had the pleasure of attending the Raider Robotics competition that we hosted. It was the first competition that we have hosted, which is a really amazing thing. After the competition, we ranked 9th out of 45 teams. That was up from 17th prior to the competition. So it was really exciting. It was really exciting to see it. Our kids are exciting and eager to do it, and they had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun. So
it's fun.
It is fun.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. I'm so glad you got to go to that. Any other remarks for the good of the order?
I have one.
Oh, Dr. Mast.
So I had a very serendipitous visitor come to my office. Her name is Ellen Jones, and she is the executrix of Carol Troy's estate. And Carol Troy, as many of you know, was our superintendent here for over 10 years, and she was a trailblazer in laying a foundation for our work in equity. And she has left in her estate $55,000 to the scholarship fund. Wow. And the students who will qualify are students who have financial need and are a minority, preferably. So the Scholarship Fund was happy to receive that check, and it certainly is a great way to celebrate all of the ways that Dr. Choi has contributed to the district.
That's great news, Dr. Mass. Thanks for sharing that. Mrs. Soriani?
Yeah, I just want to thank the Blue Notes again for coming and singing and saying that after the challenges of the last year and a half, it's wonderful to hear music again in our schools. I know several of us were at Terrell's chorus concert, 7th and 8th grade chorus concert last night. Mr. Murray was there. I know Dr. McGarry was there. And it was just wonderful. And even though the students are masked, their voices still resound, as we heard tonight. And good luck to Nettingham School in their concert next week. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Soriani. And I do wish everyone a happy holiday season, get some rest in, relax, spend time doing what you want to do while you can, and stay safe and healthy. So if there's no other comments, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Boroff, and thank you, Mr. Murray. Any questions or comments about that? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Good night, everyone. Thank you.